Welcome to Bad Character Academy, where I take some of the worst characters that Star Rail has to offer and try to show you how to best utilize them. This is inspired by the great TF2 series Bad Weapon Academy, so full credit to Fish Stick on a Stick for the initial concept. The standard 5-star characters are essentially the starting equipment that you get at the beginning of an RPG, created for the sole purpose of tossing them aside the moment you get a stronger one. And yet, I don't know about you, but I can't help feel an inextricable attachment to the first items I'm given in a game, and always try my best to hang on to them for as long as I feasibly can, and then some. All this to say, the very essence of this video and series, should I decide to keep making these, is cope. Grade A, unfiltered raw copium that sustains Acheron mains about as well as Gallagher Solo sustains MOC these days. But if you're up for the challenge, and more likely, aren't exactly rushing to swipe your credit card in this horrid economy, then stick around as we try to somehow figure out how to play Welt in the Lord's year of 2026. Welt is an imaginary sub-DPS on the Nihility path, which is fitting since his damage numbers are imaginary, his DPS is subpar, and trying to run it makes you want to give it all up and fall into the primordial soup, never to return. His main damaging ability is his skill, Edge of the Void, which is a bounce attack that hits 3 times for a total of 216% attack, also inflicting a 10% slow at a 75% base chance. His ultimate, Synthetic Black Hole, deals damage equal to 150% of Welt's attack to all enemies, within a 100% base chance for enemies hit by this ability to be imprisoned for 1 turn. Why was Acheron even remotely scared of this again? His talent, Time Distortion, causes Welt to deal additional damage equal to 60% of his attack to enemy targets he hits who are slowed. His A2 trace, Retribution, makes his ult have a 100% base chance to increase damage taken by enemies by 12% for 2 turns. His A4 trace, Judgment, causes Welt to gain 10 energy after using his ult. His A6 trace, Punishment, makes Welt deal 20% more damage to enemies who are weakness broken. His minor traces give him a total of 14.4% imaginary damage, 28% attack, and 10% effect res. Lastly, his Eidolons give him bonus damage after ulting, extra energy, extra base hit chance, and an extra skill hit at E1, E2, E4, and E6 respectively. So what's not to love about a kit that both deals damage and provides utility? Well, to put it into perspective, let's compare Welt's skill to a fairly obvious counterpart, Anaxa. Anaxa's skill is also a bounce attack that hits for roughly the same amount individually, but bounces 10 times to Welt's 3, has anywhere from an additional 20% to 100% increased damage dealt based on enemy composition, another 30% increased damage against enemies with at least 5 weaknesses, which should always be the case when he's on field, ignores up to 28% defense, and has infinitely better self buffs to boot. Furthermore, Welt is the character who probably suffers most from Star Rail's early struggles with balancing effect hit rate. Effect hit rate is a stupid, pointless stat that only serves to arbitrarily nerf Nihility, the path that already has the least cohesion and applicability. Simply put, it's impossible to cover your crit rate, crit damage, attack, speed, and effect hit rate needs at the same time, so you'll need to make a decision. Do I sacrifice the consistency of my debuffs or my damage output? This decision will be based almost entirely on the resources that your account possesses, and, as a function of that, what it is that you need for your account to succeed. We'll be exploring both of these options, which should give you some insight into how best to utilize Welt for your own needs. Of course, the question that's probably hanging over your head at this point is it even worth using Welt at all? Which I'll let you consider as this video goes along, but won't definitively give an answer to until the very end. Option 1. Welt's DPS. This is the most straightforward playstyle, with obvious upsides and far more obvious downsides. The upsides to Welt DPS are that it's quite easy to play and is an infinitely lower investment than that of a premium DPS team, considering how Welt will only get stronger individually as you lose more and more 50-50s, something we can all count on. Just to accentuate the point, you will now lose your next 50-50 to Welt. Yes, I've just cursed your pulls. As for the loadout, you're going to want Acheron Lyco. A very long time ago, there would be an actual opportunity cost associated with this move, but obviously, that's not the case anymore. Though if you don't have it, feel free to use in the Name of the World, which in my mind is still one of the absolute hardest Lyco names in the entire game. Unfortunately, this energy does not translate to actual relative strength. Relics-wise, give Welt 4-piece Pioneer, as he's able to easily proc the set effect with his myriad of debuffs, with either crit rate or crit damage body, and speed boots. Technically, you can also run the Imaginary Relic set, which was practically made for him, but honestly, they're essentially equal in terms of strength, while being infinitely less efficient to farm. For Planner set, you'll want Wanderer's Banana Amusement Park, which in case you forgot, is the set that gives 48% crit damage boost to units with a summon. Yes, I know this doesn't make a ton of sense now. Just stick with me here. And no, don't even think about equipping the effect hit rate planner. Banana Amusement with imaginary damage % orb and attack rope is the way to go. This combination of relics gives Welt some much needed crit boost that'll work very well with this kit. The reason that you're going to want to run this is because there's a total of one Welt DPS team. Welt, Sunday, Saridra, and Daniel Hang per Mancer Ture. The premise for this is simple. DHPT gives Welt a summon, activating Banana Amusement. Sunday gives Welt more turns, energy, and bonus amplification for having a summon. And Saridra gives skill damage boosts among a billion other buffs. This team works nearly perfectly for Welt, but also reflects two very glaring weaknesses. One, this is the only team that actually enables Welt DPS, and if anything at all is replaced, it completely falls apart. And two, obviously there are two top tier characters in Finon and Anaxa that work infinitely better with this combination. There isn't really even an argument to make about using it for imaginary weak content either, since both Finon and Anaxa automatically implant weakness themselves. As for how to play it, you want to run Sunday with one less speed than Welt, and spam Welt skill as much as possible. SP management will definitely be an issue, so Sunday's Light Cone will be especially helpful here. If you don't have that, prepare to basic every now and then, losing out on a decent chunk of damage relatively speaking. Realistically, you won't be hitting most of your debuffs unless you have E4, so don't be surprised if you aren't able to fully make use of Welt's whole kit. Speaking of which, don't be surprised if you aren't able to clear high difficulty content either, as to say Welt DPS numbers are lacking is like saying that Tectone is a racist sex pest chud. It's pretty obvious to just about everyone. It's pretty clear that Welt has a fairly limited kit on his own, and using him as a main DPS in this way misses out on the main feature of his kit, utility. That's why you'll likely find option 2 to be a more fruitful approach, support/pseudo sustain Welt. With his damage taken increase, slows, and imprisonment, Welt does bring a moderate amount to the table in terms of facilitating your team and keeping the enemies at bay. You can make the argument though that Cypher's passive is better than Welt's entire kit. And yeah, that's actually sorta right. But I think it speaks to how strong Cypher is more than anything. You may then raise the question, why would I ever use Welt when Cypher has better debuffing and more damage? Well, I'd like to see Cypher try to slow the enemy for 10% and sometimes 20% after ulting. Exactly. Anyways, within option 2, there are two subcategories, debuff and a third mystery playstyle I'll reveal later. For now, let's tackle debuff Welt. Everything that we talked about in the main DPS Welt section can safely be thrown out the window for this. Get rid of the Acheron Light Cone, all your crit subs, all your attack bonuses. In fact, you can return all the equipment back to Acheron, not that she'll be using them anyways. Instead, you're going to be rocking one of two options, Cypher's Light Cone or Resolution Shines as Pearls of Sweat. Again, if you have Cypher Light Cone, chances are you have Cypher, in which case what the heck are you doing? But let's just assume you're Welt's #1 soldier and are fully committed to Star Rail's ultimate Aura Farmer. Cypher's Light Cone provides speed, defense shred, and even more if you have greater than 170 speed, which you're probably not going to be able to reach barring some insane relic luck. Luckily, the first two effects are plenty strong on their own anyways. As for the more realistic scenario, Resolution provides a simple defense decrease to enemies hit, which is all that you really need. Moving on to relics, I hope you like farming the Window Main, because that's going to be your ticket to debuff Welt and a frankly disgusting amount of zero cycle strategies, since Hoyo for some reason still refuses to make an actual debuffer set. Why wind, you may ask? Well, it's obviously not for the wind damage %, that's for sure. With 4-piece wind, your action is advanced by 25% after unleashing ult. That doesn't sound like much, but I assure you it's one of the single strongest effects in the entire game. You're looking for an effect hit rate body and speed boots, and those two stats are the only thing that you care about in terms of substats. For Planar Sphere, Von Whack is the way to go. It's another horribly inefficient set to farm, but I promise you, Action Advance is busted. Just take my word for it. HP or defense orb doesn't really matter, and energy regen rope. You could also run Lushaka to buff your main DPS, but we both know you won't be doing that now, will you? As for strategy, it's sort of flexible. Your first thought would probably be to run this with Acheron, and though the synergy is obviously there, I think putting two washed units on the same team is a bit too masochistic for me. But hey, you do you. If you have a team that doesn't rely on skill points, feel free to spam skill to get more ult uptime, but more realistically, you'll either be alternating skill basic or mostly basic attacking. The one caveat is that you want to ult either immediately after Welt goes to maximize action advance or to interrupt a unit's second attack. Expect to do no damage, but again, the issue is that you can't have it all, solid damage contribution and consistent utility. Or can you? Time for option 3. Drumroll please. Break Welt. That's right, it's the answer to making every bad character somewhat, sorta relevant-ish. Just throw them on a break team. Welt though is uniquely suited for this role, since he kinda does what Ranmei does, with more toughness shred. With break comps, you want to prevent enemies from taking their turn as much as possible, not just for the obvious practical reason of less incoming damage, but also to ensure that you get enough super break in while their toughness bar is depleted, which to say the least is one of Welt's specialties. You also don't care much for the common buffs that supported units provide, instead opting for debuffs, which we know Welt has plenty of. It really helps too that the current break comp is weirdly flexible. You can use Welt as the main break DPS or use him as a pseudo sustain. Plus, with the relatively recent addition of the Dahlia, you can implant imaginary weakness with him as the main breaker or run him with Rappa, who would do the same. Let's say we're rocking Welt as a support, alongside Firefly, the Dahlia, and Fugue. For light cones, either throw on Fugue light cone or any of the debuff Welt's options. There's also another option of using Tutorial when ran with Fugue, since her defense ignore would let him proc the effect, resulting in way more energy. For Relic set, it'll of course be Glamoth with the same EHR body and speed boots. Same principle as before really, except look for break subs as well. For planners it'll be Talia, but if you're running him with Firefly or against fire weak enemies, Forge does even better. HP/defense sphere, and probably break effect rope, but energy regen is also okay if you want to lean more into the supportive role. Realistically speaking, you could probably ignore all this and just reuse the debuff loadout for break comps, but come on, I know you want to see Welt actually doing damage. I can safely say that this is Welt's ideal playstyle, leveraging his utility while also providing damage contributions in his own right. You can kind of think of him as a weird Ranmei-Rappa hybrid, providing some modicum of util and sustain. Now that I think of it, debuff Welt is just Cypher Light, having less damage and debuff, and DPS Welt is just a poor man's Anaxa, complete with nearly identical ults, but Anaxa doing everything else way better. Which kind of brings us back to the question raised earlier. Is it worth it at all to use Welt? The answer shouldn't surprise anyone. No, of course not. No amount of niche theory crafting and obscure tech can change the fact that Welt is a standard banner character with 200% scaling on his skill, who wasn't made to be used beyond the first few update cycles of the game. And really, any combination of 4 limited 5 stars will get you more mileage than anything you can put together with Welt Yang being a core member of the team. But that's not the point of Bad Character Academy, and the more I've thought about it, the more I'm starting to believe that that shouldn't be the point of Honkai Star Rail in the first place. Why focus on meta and viability so much in a game that's not particularly complex nor rewarding to be a top performer in? Ultimately, the game is more fun when you're having fun. And it's fun to use bad characters, and I'll say with 100% certainty, it's fun to use Welt, because Welt is freaking awesome. I hope you enjoyed the first episode of Bad Character Academy. This was obviously a complete change of pace from my typical Star Rail content, so please let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And if you liked it, leave your suggestions for who I should do next. Thank you for watching. More Star Rail videos coming soon.
Anyway, $4 a pound.